We live in interesting times for the headlines. Terror returns to London Bridge. A man wearing a suspected hoax explosive device is shot dead by armed officers on London Bridge after what police said was a terrorist stabbing spree, reviving memories of another horrific attack 2 years ago. Dutch police were hunting an assailant who stabbed 3 minors in the Hague's main shopping street as people looked for bargains on Black Friday. And the SEA Games 2019 opening ceremony at the Philippine Arena kicked off. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. A man suspected of stabbing 2 people to death in a terror attack on London Bridge was an ex-prisoner convicted of terrorism offenses and released last year, according to police. The knife man, wearing a suspected hoax explosive device, was shot dead by police after Friday's daylight assault that also saw bystanders intervene to try and disarm him. Now 3 more people were wounded in the stabbing spree that came less than 2 weeks before Britain votes in a general election and revived memories of a 3-man attack 2 years ago on London Bridge that killed 8. Police named the suspect as 28-year-old Usman Khan, saying they were not actively seeking others in relation to the incident.
As you would expect, due to the nature of the incident, we responded as though this was terrorist related. I'm now in a position to confirm that it has been declared a terrorist incident.
It is with the heaviest of hearts that I have to inform you that, as well as the suspect who was shot dead by police, 2 of those injured in this attack in the London Bridge area have tragically lost their lives. My heart goes out to their loved ones and to the 3 further injured victims who I understand are being treated in hospital. And of course to everybody who has been affected by today's terrible and mindless events. In the coming days you will see more police, both armed and unarmed, patrolling our streets to help reassure those who are understandably concerned.
Police named the suspect as 28-year-old Usman Khan, saying they were not actively seeking others in relation to the incident. In 2012, Khan from Stoke in central England was jailed, along with 8 others in a terrorist group inspired by Al-Qaeda that had plotted to bomb targets including the London Stock Exchange. He was sentenced to a minimum of 8 years in prison and was also found guilty of making longer-term plans, including taking part in terrorist training in Pakistan.
As you would expect, due to the nature of the incident, we responded as though this was terrorist related. I'm now in a position to confirm that it has been declared a terrorist incident.
Footage filmed by eyewitnesses and shared on social media showed a scrum of people tackling the suspect on the ground before the police arrived. One man wearing a suit and tie was seen carrying a large knife away from the group. Now, Khan had been living in the Staffordshire region of central England, and officers were searching an address in that area. During the attack, he had been wearing an electronic tag used to monitor criminal offenders, according to a report in British newspaper The Times. He also had equipment strapped to his body that police said they believed to be a hoax explosive device.
I quickly checked my phone, and obviously the news was that someone had been shot on the London Bridge, that gunshots were fired. We were told not to do anything. We just went on, and I just stepped out and realized that the whole area is cordoned off. You never know if these things happen alone. You never know if there's something else. The nature of the incident is not quite clear at this point, so yeah, obviously there's a little doubt
Well, we were called by the office of my colleague that we can't enter the office building anymore because the whole area was cleared. Police forces are around, and we should stay in.
He just came in shouting and pulling the doors and saying, "We need to shut the doors. You need to shut the doors if you want to be safe. You need to stay in here and lock the doors."
Metropolitan Police are continuing their investigations, and I can assure you and assure everyone that anybody involved in this crime, in these attacks, will be hunted down and will be brought to justice. I think the message that we send to them and anyone associated with this type of attack is one that will be familiar, and that is that this country will never be cowed or divided or intimidated by this sort of attack, and our values, our British values, will prevail. Well, to the best of our knowledge, the incident has been contained, but I pay tribute again to the work of the police and the emergency services in what they've done. But I would urge everybody, of course, to be vigilant, and one cannot help but think back to what happened in 2017 in the same part of the city, and I hope very much that people will be able, as fast as possible, to go about their normal business. I also want to pay tribute to the extraordinary bravery of those members of the public who physically intervened to protect the lives of others. And for me, they represent the very best of our country, and I thank them on behalf of all of our country.
Meanwhile, Dutch police were hunting an assailant who stabbed 3 minors in The Hague's main shopping street as people looked for bargains on Black Friday. The stabbing happened at the Hudson's Bay department store in Groot Marktstraat. It is the city's biggest shopping area, which is lined with major retailers and brands. Take a look. The 2 teenage girls came running into the store after being stabbed, according to broadcaster NOS, and it quoted witnesses as saying, "The male attacker ran off after the incident at a department store in the city center that caused scenes of panic among the crowds of shoppers."
What we know so far is there was a stabbing incident around 7:45 this evening. 3 people were injured. Those 3 people all 3 of them are minors. At this moment we haven't arrested a suspect yet, so we are currently very busy trying to find the suspects. Right now we're keeping several scenarios in account, so it's a little too early to speculate about those kind of things.
The perpetrator has still not been found despite a large police presence throughout the city and a helicopter circling overhead. The stabbing took place not far from Parliament, which is the seat of government for the Netherlands and home to many international organizations. The U.S. Embassy warned its nationals in The Hague to avoid the area because of, quote, reports of a security incident, and told them to let loved ones know they were safe. The incident also came hours after a terror-related stabbing on London Bridge in the British capital killed 2 members of the public. The suspected attacker was shot dead. All right, let's now go to the Philippine 2019 30th Southeast Asian Games. We have an update coming in from Ben Bernaldez, who is now in Clark City. Ben?
Yes, Alma, the biggest and the best edition of the Southeast Asian Games opened its 30th edition at the world's largest Philippine arena at the Ciudad de Victoria in Bulacan. And the President Duterte and some dignitaries of the region graced the inaugural program of the 30th Southeast Asian Games and that will showcase 56 sports with 530 events. And as you can see, that the Philippine arena was full packed and jam packed with the spectators, with the guests from different countries watch the opening ceremonies. It was colorful with lots of performances by local, international artists, and it showcased the Filipino culture as depicted in the presentation during the opening ceremonies, and also the one of the controversial issues in the opening of the SEA Games was the cold run, and it was lit and now has become the main attraction at the SEA Games. And earlier this afternoon, we visited New Clark City, where we see that the facilities, the aquatics, the stadium, and even the athletes' village is very prepared, and it was a world-class facilities has been built for these 38th Southeast Asian Games. And we also have talked to one of the athletes in Malaysia who is trying to visit the stadium with the cold run before the opening ceremonies this afternoon, and he was very pleased and excited with how the Philippines prepared for this 38th SEA Games, especially with the facilities they have seen. And tomorrow there will be start of the competition early in the morning, 5 a.m. for the triathlon, and this will be hoping that the Philippines will get its first gold medal for the 38th Southeast Asian Games. As we all know, Philippines has been dominating the triathlon scene, and hoping to get gold, silver, respectively, for that event, and followed by competition in the water polo, and we're expecting to also in the contention for the gold medal game against Indonesia. And there's more action-packed games, not only for the Philippines, but also other countries who will be competing in different sports tomorrow. And there are also a lot of sports that will be debuting for these 30th Southeast Asian Games. Alma?
Do you know how many games are going to be played throughout this SEA Games?
There are 56 sports with 530 events in total from November 30 to December 11, and as many as the 530 gold medals are expected to be given away at these 30th Southeast Asian Games.
Mm-hmm. So you're now in New Clark City. What are the games that are going to be played tomorrow?
Of course, in aquatics, there's diving, swimming, and the track and field also will be held at the athletic stadium, and of course, in Subic there will be the windsurfing, also the triathlon, pencaksilat, Muay Thai, table tennis. And there are 17 sports will be conducted at the Subic cluster, and then in Clark, and some sports other sports will be held in Metro Manila.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ben. We'll be looking out for more updates from you as we go along.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And that's Ben Bernaldez for Yen Sports, reporting for the 30th Southeast Asian Games.
All right, thank you, Ben. Meanwhile, crowds began arriving at the Philippine Arena as early as 1 p.m. for the opening ceremony of the 30th ASEAN or the Southeast Asia Games in the country. Now they started to let the crowd in at around past 3. The Philippines is hosting the 30th SEA Games with the theme "We Win as One." Now the opening ceremony was one of the earliest events to sell out when tickets were released. Participating are 8,750 athletes and officials from 11 Southeast Asian nations, namely from Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, even Timor-Leste and Vietnam. The 2019 SEA Games will be the first edition also to include esports and obstacle course, as well as having the highest number of sports in the history of the Games. A total of 56 sports will be held in competition venues spread in 23 cities across the country, divided into 4 clusters, all located on Luzon, namely in Metro Manila, Clark, Subic, Olongapo, and a 4th cluster consisting of standalone venues. Now, President Duterte, along with Brunei's Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah, attended the ceremony. Now, this will be the Philippines' 4th time to host the Games, and its first since 2005. Host country Philippines has the biggest delegation of They are around 1,868. Now, as I said earlier, esports, obstacle race sports, underwater hockey, kickboxing, courage, sambo, modern pentathlon, jiu-jitsu, skateboarding, floorball, netball, and 3x3 basketball. These games are all making their debut in this edition. This is the first time in the 60-year history of the SEA Games that the opening ceremony is held indoors, taking place in the world's largest indoor arena with a 55,000 seating capacity.
I declare open the Southeast Asian Games for the 30th time, celebrating the Games of Southeast Asia. Mabuhay kayong lahat.
Meanwhile, Philippine Southeast Asian Games organizers reminded those who will be watching the 30th SEA Games opening ceremonies on Saturday, as well as other SEA Games events, not to bring any of the items they have prohibited during the event for security reasons. So that's why the Philippine SEA Games Organizational Committee, or PHISGOC, chaired by House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, issued a clear bag policy for the SEA Games opening that was held inside the 55,000-seater Philippine Arena, as well as for the other games to be held in other sporting event venues. And as we can see here, it is being implemented as people enter the venues.
Masyado po kasing malaki yung dala kong gamit. Kahit transparent siya, hindi pwede kasi ito kasi masyadong malaki. Kaya minabuti kong bumili na lang ng ganito. Kasi
medyo mahigpit po dito. Di tulad sa mga normal bag check-up sa mga malls and other like airports po, dito talagang mabusisit talaga. Ultimo yung pinakalaman ng pinaka-wallet namin, kailangan ipakita para lang ma-secure yung yung personal belongings na dadalhin namin sa mismong venue.
Okay lang sa inyo?
Yes, for the safety of everyone.
May dala po sila, pinakompiskate po natin, sinesegregate. Yung may mga box po tayo na naglalagyan. Bali good as na po yan, confiscated. Kasi alam naman nila in the first place na bawal. So, kung dinala nila, kung ayaw nilang mag-surrender or sa protocol, hindi namin sila papapasokin, hindi sila makaboard. So, yun lang po, kasimple, ganun lang kasimple. Pag bawal, hindi pwede, hindi makapag-board.
Bahay pa lang, dahil wala naman akong transparent bag na available that time, nilagay ko sa plastic, tapos nilagay ko sa nagbaon ako ng paper bag para at least pagka dito na sa inspection na, lalabas ko na lang yung plastic, tabi ko yung paper bag. Ganun lang. Pero yung iba kasi, right away nakapag-avail sila ng transparent bag na meron dito sa mall. Ganun. Pero ultimo kasi yung yung mga hand sanitizer, bawal talaga eh. So, nanghinayang man ako sa hand sanitizer ko kasi wala akong magagamit doon. Pero okay lang, kaysa naman hindi ka makapag-enjoy dahil hindi ka na-hold ka na kagad.
Bumili na ako sa taas ng plastic na transparent na bag. Tapos yung dala naming backpack sa yung bag, iniwan namin sa baggage counter. Tapos babalikan na lang namin para lang masunod yung kanila, security.
Meanwhile, at around 1:30 p.m., convoys started to pass by EDSA together with the athletes and delegates coming from their hotels.
mahigit daan-daang convoy po ang kailangan naming masiguro na makakarating po ng Philippine Arena on time. No? Nasa 200 mahigit po yan. 200 mahigit na buses at convoy. Stop and go scheme po ang paiiralin natin. Ibig sabihin, sir, pag dumadaan po yung convoy, pansamantalang patitigilin yung mga pribadong sasakyan o maging pampubliko para ho makadaan yung convoy. Pangalawa, sir, yung mga perpendicular roads, intersections, yung mga pinaglalabasan po ng mga private vehicles, patitigilin po muna yan. May mga nakaposteng HPG, MMDA, local traffic enforcers, para ho bigyang daan muna yung nasabing convoy. Pagkalagpas po ng convoy, back to normal na po yung sitwasyon ng daloy ng trapiko.
Now, as we said earlier, strict security was implemented at the Philippine Arena. Inspections were strictly done for those entering the arena. 5 o'clock was the lockdown of the venue. 7 p.m. was the official start of the opening ceremonies of the 30th Southeast Asian Games. In other news, a tropical cyclone wind, signal number 1, has been hoisted over several areas as Typhoon Tisoy entered the Philippine area of responsibility. Pagasa said the signal is hoisted over eastern Samar and the eastern section of northern Samar, particularly Lawang, Palapag, Mapanas, Gamay, Lapinig, Katubig, and Las Navas. Typhoon Tisoy is expected to make landfall over Bicol region between Monday afternoon and early Tuesday morning, Pagasa said. According to the Weather Bureau, as of 4 p.m., the center of Typhoon Tisoy was located 1,165 kilometers east of Virac, Catanduanes, packing maximum sustained winds of up to 150 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 185 kilometers per hour. It's moving west-southwest at 15 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 may be raised over the rest of northern Samar, Catanduanes, and Sorsogon, according to the Weather Bureau. Meanwhile, the incoming typhoon will not pose a serious threat on the safety and security of the officials and athletes of the 2019 SEA Games, so the sporting events shall continue as scheduled. To other news now, a journalist with Chinese state broadcaster CCTV was on Friday convicted of slapping an activist with Britain's governing Conservative Party during a debate over Hong Kong. Lin Kong, 49, was given a suspended sentence for assaulting Enoch Liu at a fringe meeting at the Conservatives' annual conference in Birmingham, Central England in September of 2018. Take a look. Now, she shouted at human rights activists on the panel that they were trying to separate China, and when Liu asked her to leave, she slapped him, according to the city's magistrate's court. And here's Enoch Liu's reaction during the incident back in 2018.
I was just merely trying to escort her out, and normally I wouldn't expect people to respond to that so violently, because nothing had happened. I didn't touch her. I didn't, there's no force being used. There's no such confrontation really. I was just merely asking her, please, can you leave? Like, this is not. We don't welcome you here. And then she took it very negatively, and then she slapped me. And obviously I was very shocked. All sorts of these events, and we had various of very healthy, good discussions from both sides. So obviously some people are in favor of what the Chinese government is doing, and that's completely okay because they have the freedom to express themselves. But certainly in a situation like this, I'm being attacked by a ghastly woman. I don't think that had happened before.
Leave me alone! It was in the heat of the moment that the defendant lost her cool professionalism as a journalist and instead became an impassioned heckler, according to Judge Shamim Qureshi. He gave Kong a 12-month conditional discharge, meaning she will not be jailed unless a further offense is committed within that period. He also ordered her to pay costs, a victim surcharge and compensation totaling £2,115, and she's expected to appeal.
This is democratic UK. No, I have the right. I prefer UK have democracy. You have no right.
Hundreds of Hong Kong protesters rallied outside the city's British Consulate General in support of former consulate employee Simon Cheng over his torture claims and demand the UK do more for British national overseas passport holders in the former colony. Protesters here are wearing a Simon Cheng mask in support of their colleague. Chinese police published Thursday a video purporting to show a former employee of the British consulate in Hong Kong confessing to soliciting prostitutes after Britain backed his allegation that he was tortured over pro-democracy protests. The case has added to tensions between Beijing and London over the demonstrations that have roiled the former British colony for months. Simon Cheng, a Hong Kong citizen, said he was shackled to a steel tiger chair, hung spread-eagled on a steep X cross, and beaten by secret police while he was detained in the southern mainland city of Shenzhen for days in August. Cheng also said in a statement on Facebook that police had accused him of being a British spy and questioned him about London's role in protests that have racked the semi-autonomous city for months. Cheng said he felt he had no choice but to make a filmed confession to soliciting prostitution, a charge that he said was offered by police as an alternative to indefinite criminal detention and that he had not been allowed to contact his family. He added in the statement that he had got a massage for relaxation from work hours. Now, Shenzhen police on Thursday posted a video on the Twitter-like Weibo platform purporting to show Cheng entering and leaving a room in a clubhouse multiple times. AFP could not immediately verify the video, which also contains separate footage in which Cheng is asked why he does not want police to tell his family about his detention. Cheng said this is because it is a shameful incident, adding that he feels too ashamed, quote, to meet my girlfriend and my family. Meanwhile, Chileans again took to the streets to protest social and economic inequality against an entrenched political elite that comes from a small number of the country's wealthiest families, among other issues. Take a look. Protesters also sang a song against a gender violence which went viral amid the ongoing social crisis. Demonstrations have become an almost daily occurrence in the capital Santiago and elsewhere in the country. Chile's government met for the first time with organized labor on Thursday, aiming to find a way out of the social unrest that has rocked the country for more than a month. Members of President Sebastián Piñera's conservative government met with representatives of the Social Unity Board, a collective of social and labor groups who were behind many of the calls to protest. Among the collective's members is the Workers United Center of Chile, the most powerful union in the country, the Teachers Union, and the No Plus AFP group, which calls for an end to Chile's private pension system. The country's worst crisis in decades has been furious. Chileans take to the streets to protest social and economic inequality and against an entrenched political elite that comes from a small number of the country's wealthiest families, among other issues. And President Piñera's government has announced a raft of reforms to end the crisis, including the drafting of a new constitution to replace the current one that dates back to the dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet, who ruled from 1973 to 1990. But trade unions and many demonstrators are asking the government to go further, including by increasing the minimum wage by 50% and by replacing the private pension system inherited from the Pinochet era. Iraqis kept up their anti-government protests in Baghdad and across the south on Saturday, unsatisfied with the prime minister's planned resignation and insisting all corrupted people must step down. Prime Minister Abdel Mahdi announced on Friday he was planning to submit his resignation to parliament. But the following day, protests were still ongoing in his birthplace of Nasiriyah in Iraq's south. Demonstrations set tires ablaze on 3 bridges spanning the Euphrates River as hundreds more converged in the main protest camp in the Flashpoint city center, according to an AFP correspondent. Their renewed rallies came despite a bloody crackdown by security forces that left more than 40 protesters dead over the past 2 days in the city. Now, the violence was unleashed after protesters stormed and burned the Iranian consulate in the shrine city of Najaf, accusing Iraq's neighbor of propping up the Baghdad government. Authorities have officially stopped rescue operations in Durrës and Thumain, Albania. During the last 4 days, police and military forces have found a total of 50 victims under the ruins, while more than 900 people were injured. Entire families were crushed by their homes when the 6.4 magnitude earthquake, the most deadly and devastating in decades, jolted the Balkan country before dawn on Tuesday. Defense Minister Olta Shaka urged residents to leave any homes affected by the quake, saying experts were preparing to assess the risks. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
China's November factory activity rebounded for the first time in 7 months, according to data on Saturday, despite the looming threat of fresh U.S. tariffs within weeks if Beijing and Washington failed to sign a partial trade deal. The closely watched Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, a key gauge of activity in the country's factories, rose to 50.2 in November, up from 49.3 last month, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The reading is slightly above the 50-point mark that separates growth and contraction every month. A sub-index of new export orders climbed to a 7-month high at 48.8, but was still in contraction as demand wanes for China's exports abroad. Ting Lu, chief China economist at investment bank Nomura, says the blip of the rise in the official manufacturing PMI doesn't signify a recovery in the economy. The reading comes as Beijing and Washington edge towards a partial deal to a trade war that has dragged on for nearly 20 months. Top U.S. and Chinese negotiators held phone talks on Tuesday and agreed to keep in touch over remaining issues for a Phase 1 trade deal between the two countries, according to Chinese state media. The two sides have slapped tariffs on nearly $500 billion worth of goods in two-way trade, and U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening fresh tariffs in mid-December if there was no mini deal. The Bureau of Immigration alerted its agents and frontline staff manning the airport to thoroughly screen every Filipino traveling to Dubai following reports that human trafficking syndicates were using the Emirate countries as a transit point for illegal deployment of OFWs to Iraq. BI Commissioner Jaime Morente issued the order after the Department of Foreign Affairs recently alerted the Bureau about the alleged recruitment by syndicates through social media of Filipino workers to Iraq despite the ongoing OFW ban there. Reports say that online ads advertising newly opened job vacancies in Iraq allegedly circulated online and falsely claimed that the deployment ban has been lifted. Immigration officers are directed to exercise extra vigilance in clearing the departure of Filipino travelers bound for Dubai, particularly those who are departing as tourists, and make sure that they're not going to other foreign destinations in order to work, Morente said in his directive. Manila Port Chief Grifton Medina. The BI chief also instructed airport officers to monitor names of several OFWs allegedly illegally recruited to work as restaurant waiters in Baghdad, which the Bureau obtained from the DFA. The victims have allegedly agreed to reimburse the deployment costs incurred by their recruiters through salary deduction. More than 24 protesters are arrested by police officers as they are protesting against Black Friday in New York to denounce the environmental toll of mass consumption. Black Friday will be followed in 3 days by Cyber Monday, a second high point of spending early in the season. Friday sales have prompted copycat versions throughout Europe, an effort that has generated no small amount of friction. This year's events prompted protests in parts of France, Germany, and the Netherlands that included environmentalist rallies outside Amazon distribution centers and human chains blocking malls.
If you do not cooperate, we are hoping and demanding that politicians take action now, because every second that is wasted, we are polluting the earth more and more.
So we are here to kind of bear witness to that consumerism and overconsumption is one of the major drivers of the climate crisis, extractive, exploitive economies. And we are not here to attack any particular shoppers or to shame or blame anyone. We're here to call attention to the crisis and the systems that we're all a part of.
We're speaking out against the culture that encourages us to consume and consume and consume at the expense of the planet, and we've reached a tipping point where we're on the brink of catastrophe, and it's got to stop. This is we're making a stand. We're saying this cannot go on. This has to stop. We have to do something now.
If you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly.
Meanwhile, dozens of activists blocked an Amazon distribution center outside Paris to protest the environmental damage they say is caused by rampant consumerism during Black Friday sales. Between 50 and 100 activists from the Nonviolent Action COP21 and Friends of the Earth's groups used bales of hay and human chains to block the Amazon depot about 40 in Bretigny-sur-Orge, about 40 kilometers south of Paris. According to AFP journalists at the scene, some held banners reading Amazon for the climate, for employment, stop expanding, stop overproduction, while others used old electrical goods to block the path of trucks trying to enter the site. The protest took place on the eve of the Black Friday sales, a tradition that originated in the U.S. on the day after Thanksgiving, but has gone global in the past few years. Now, the activists say the surge in deliveries by Amazon and other retailers to shoppers snapping up bargains on everything from phones to furniture and clothes add to greenhouse gas emissions. Now, despite its remoteness, Antarctica, which is the heart of the Earth, is also suffering the effects of human activities, according to Marcelo Lepe, director of the Chilean Antarctic Institute. Between global warming and microplastics, the white continent, he said, is more exposed than ever.
It's like a heart because every year change the shape from 13 million square kilometers to more than 20. Expands in winter the sea ice and retreat in summer. So if you can see that in terms of a scale of a decadal scale, for example, you can see it beating, really beating, and the circumantarctic current is moving around the world as a circulatory system. So literally looks like the heart of the Earth, and as a scientist, I can say today responsibly is probably playing a major role in the control of the climate change. It's very important to understand, it's very important to predict, but it's also very important to preserve. The main impact in Antarctica is probably the cryosphere. Every year you can detect and record the melting of glaciers, the separation of sea ice, and the retreatment of the glaciers. But in the areas that are living without ice, the recolonization of plants and other organisms that were not present in Antarctica before, at least in human scale, and also in the oceans, the dilution of the salt in the oceans, the change in the pH is more acidic, is changing the composition of organisms, especially in terms of krill. Krill is one of the basement of the chains in Antarctica, and has been recorded as affected during the last 20 years. We have recorded that in the last 50 years, probably the 15% of all the ice have disappeared. And in the following years, this curve is accelerating. The sea level rise have been predicted in the different scenarios in the IPCC reports. Originally, we were talking about, in the most conservative, 56 centimeters, but today we are talking about more than 80 and close to the 1 meter. That means that probably the 70% of the economies of the world that depends of ports and activities in the coastal areas will be affected, very affected. At the year 2100, probably important part, more than the 35% of the ice will disappear. The landscape of the Antarctic Peninsula will be very different, and the dynamics of the sea currents will be also definitely different. And we have discovered recently, just in the last 5 years, that the special things that are happening in the Antarctic climate is starting to affect Chile. For example, in 2015 there was a big flood in the northern part of Chile, a centennial scale event that was 4 days after the highest temperature recorded by instruments in Antarctica, in the northern peninsula, over 17 Celsius degrees. The microplastics is starting to be a big issue in Antarctica. There are areas we have detected, we have different projects tracing the existence of microplastics, and we have detected eventually in all environments in Antarctica. So what we produce in the rest of the world is rich in Antarctica, and this nature that looks very untouched is really touched by the human finger through the plastics.
All right, we have a report coming in from Mean Corvera. Earlier, she was at the Philippine Arena. Mean, tell us what you saw earlier.
Alas 12 pa lang ng tanghali, ganito na kahaba ang pila sa Philippine Arena na naisaksihan ang formal na pagsisimula ng 30th Southeast Asian Games. Naging mahigpit ang seguridad at hindi pinapayagan ang pagdadala ng mga bag at anumang pagkain o inumin sa loob ng arena. Pero baliwala raw ito sa kanila, makita lang ang mga atleta at masaksihan ang anilay once-in-a-lifetime event ng SEA Games na gagawin sa Pilipinas.
Hindi, susuportahan namin ng Pilipinas. Siyempre, mahal namin ang Pilipinas.
Ang iba nanggaling pa sa malalayong probinsya pero nagtungo sa Philippine Arena para ipakita ang suporta sa Pilipinas at mga atleta.
Well, I came all the way from Samar just to be here because I care about our country. Alam mo, kaya Team Pilipinas ito. Team Pilipinas. Ganyan talaga tayo. Kailangan natin magkakaisa tayo. Regardless kung may mga palpak pa dyan, kailangan ipakita natin sa buong mundo na ang Pilipinas, nagkakaisa tayo.
We win as one.
We win as one.
We win as one.
We win as one. Diba?
Galing naman ng Pili, Camarines Sur ang 74 years old na si Nanay Erlinda. Dati raw siyang atleta at nais niyang personal na masaksihan ang formal na pagsisimula ng palaro.
At saka nandito sa atin naman, dapat nga libre na ito kasi nandito sa Pilipinas. Diba? Pero ang hirap mano ng ticket. May nagtitinda na iba't iba. Ay, hindi ko maintindihan. Ang dami talagang ticket.
Nang i-anunsyo na nasisimula ng pagpapapasok, naghiyawan ng mga tao at sabay-sabay na tumakbo. Marami sa kanila iba-iba ang paraan ng pagpapakita ng suporta. Ang batang ito kasama ang kanyang ama na isang sports volunteer, nagsuot pa ng barot saya kakulay ng watawat ng Pilipinas. Sapatos naman na may nakapintang bandila ng Pilipinas ang suot ni Jason na nagpa-picture pa sa harap ng Philippine Arena. Bit-bit naman ni Lisa ang bandila ng Pilipinas na dala-dala niya raw sa ibang bansa kapag nanonood ng laban ng mga atletang Pilipino. Proud siyang ipinagmamalaki ang mga Pinoy matalo man o manalo sa laban. Nakabase ito sa Texas at nagbabakasyon lang sa Pilipinas.
Mas maganda yung nanonood ng live. Once in a lifetime. Kasama ko yung aking mga anak at saka pamangkin. Ayun, siyempre, bihira yan. Bihira ang pagkakataon. This is my ticket.
Bihirang pagkakataon, may?
Bihira gawin ng dito tayo mag-host sa country, di ba? As a Filipino, we're very proud.
Kasi, syempre, minsan lang dito sa Pilipinas. Kasi yung last na SEA Games, high school pa kami. So ngayon, medyo may kaya-kaya na kami. So kaya na namin bumili ng ticket. Yeah. Syempre, nakaka-proud din. Oo, tsaka ang bongga natin, 'di ba, bago yung ating mga stadium. So, yes. Na mabigay nila yung best nila, tsaka safety syempre.
Ang iba't ibang grupo suot naman ang mga t-shirt na may flag ng Pilipinas. Bit-bit nila ang mga flaglets bilang pagpapakita ng suporta sa mga atletang sasabak na sa mga palaro simula bukas.
We win as one!
Pinagkaguluhan naman ang cheer group na ito na mula pa sa Thailand at dumayo sa Pilipinas. Nais daw nilang maging masaya ang pagsisimula ng SEA Games at ipakita ang suporta sa kanilang mga atleta. Ang magkasintahang sina Matt at Molly nang galing pa sa London. Dumayo sila sa Pilipinas hindi lang para saksihan ang SEA Games kundi bisitahin rin ang magagandang tourist spots sa bansa. Masaya raw sila sa pagtrato ng mga Pilipino at naniniwalang masusungkit ng mga Pinoy ang mga gintong medalya.
It's meant to be huge.
Yeah.
Everyone's here, all family, friends, and it's just showcasing everything that's great about the Philippines. And I think it's just amazing. You get like all the Southeast Asian countries coming together, and the Philippines are going to put on an amazing show.
And now we live here, we want to get immersed into the culture.
And the stadium is incredible, isn't it? Incredible. Amazing.
Yeah, there's nothing to say about the Philippines. It's unbelievable. It blows us away every time. We love being in the city, we love being on the beaches. We're just really excited to see the opening ceremony. Yeah, we need them to win.
We've got to win.
Para sa Eagle News, may Ann Corvera, AM1 with 25.
All right, meanwhile, let's try and watch this opening ceremony earlier that was led by our that was held at the Philippine Arena. Let's take a glimpse.
You know, when you talk about Indonesia,
All right, thank you for that. Meanwhile, Indonesia clinched the first gold medal of the Southeast Asian Games in the Philippines on Friday with a historic victory, bringing Singapore's 54-year stranglehold on the men's water polo competition to an end. The tournament winners beat Malaysia 14-7 to take the lead in the 5-team round-robin competition at the new Clark City Aquatic Center, but had to watch a nail-biting 6-6 draw between Singapore and the Philippines before their triumph was sealed beyond doubt. It was an agonizing evening for the host nation, who failed to beat the reigning champions by more than 3 goals, a margin which would have seen them leapfrog Indonesia on goal difference. Their victory breaks Singapore's run after a staggering 27 consecutive water polo golds at the SEA Games since it began 1965, during which time they did not lose a single match until their crucial defeat to Indonesia on Thursday. Indonesia had been runners-up to their arch-rival Singapore in every edition of the biennial tournament since 2013. A sport that originated in the Philippines could potentially be one of the difference makers in the country's bid to capture a better ranking in the 30th SEA Games. Arnis, a Filipino martial art and the country's national sport, will be one of the medal-rich regular events in the SEA Games. With 20 gold medals at stake, the national team of Arnis hopes to capture more than half of it and contribute to the country's bid to win the overall championship in the 30th Southeast Asian Games here. Arnis competition is set on December 1 to 3 at the Angeles University Foundation. The sport is also making a return to SEA Games action after it was first introduced as a demo sport when the country last staged the biennial meet 14 years ago in 2005. Now that time, the Philippines accounted for 3 gold medals, 3 silvers to match the medal output of Vietnam. Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri, president of the Philippine Eskrima Kali Arnis Federation, said that the athletes have done well during training and are ready to show that they're capable of against the best in the region. All right, lastly, we gathered some reactions from our EBC ASEAN Bureau. Our EBC correspondent Rubiti Nawin talks with Mr. Mike Kars in Malaysia. Take a look.
I am here with Mike to get his reaction about the ongoing SEA Games. Mike?
Hi everyone. I'm Michael Karsa. I'm here in Malaysia right now. So my reaction for the ongoing SEA Games, it's a proud moment for us Filipinos because we're the host. We can show our hospitality and we can show beautiful places to the athletes participating in SEA Games. So also I'm hoping that everyone from our Philippine team will get most of the golds, if not all, because they work hard, they practice almost every day so that they will get the bacon, as we say. So good luck to all our athletes. Hopefully we will have a clean and fair games, and I'm supporting everyone in the Philippines to this event. So good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Mike. This is Rubiti Nawin from EBC Malaysia Bureau, and I'm 1-25. Back to the studio.
Staying in the Malaysia Bureau, here's Gail Aldos. Gail?
Hi, I'm with Angelo to get his reaction for the ongoing SEA Games.
Hi, I'm Angelo Mo'o.
want to say that may the best teams win and also practice always. I hope the SEA Games are clean and nice and don't fight. Go Team Philippines!
Thank you, Angelo. This is Gail Aldos reporting for the EBC Malaysia Bureau. I am 1 with 25. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Gail. Meanwhile, our EBC correspondent Derek Llaneras got this reaction regarding the SEA Games. Still in Malaysia, Derek?
I am here with Arnie to get the reaction about the ongoing SEA Games.
Hi, I'm Arnie Hernandez, currently here in Malaysia, and I fully support Philippines volleyball team. And kahit ano bang ibang sports, sa mga Pinoy na nasa ibang bansa, support pa rin natin yung Pilipinas. Go Team Pinas! Woo!
Thank you. This is Derek Llaneras of EBC Malaysia Bureau. Back to you all.
And finally, let's hear it from Atip Krainara from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Atip?
Hi everyone, I'm Atip from Thailand. I heard a lot of good things about SEA Games 2019 and the opening ceremony at Philippine Arena. And I'm so excited. Of course, and I can't wait to see it. Susunakrab, Thailand!
Thanks, guys, and that's the news for tonight. I'm Alma Angeles. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. Always 1 with 25. Good night.